Good morning, guys. Happy Thursday. Hopefully you guys all survived the FOMC meeting. Was quite a bit of fun. Max got what he wanted. Got to take out that super shitty high that he was on about. He was not liking it. I got my pump as well, so it was a good day. Hopefully you guys traded accordingly. If you watched Sin City yesterday, thank you for watching as always and supporting. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. We did cover a little more order flow than we normally do when I go on that show. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask Max. I'm sure we'll cover it in a different way that I did because I tried to keep it as basic as possible, whereas Max is kind of like the Rain Man. So let's see. We do have people in the chat. For the first time, I've come over and I noticed that there are people missing or actually talking in the chat. So that is awesome. Normally people aren't up for our shows. I see Sin City Crypto saying, damn, it's early. Thank you for having me on yesterday. Appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the charts. Greetings from Poland. Wow. Awesome. We're going to jump into the charts. We're going to talk a little bit about Bitcoin, talk about this move up and the most important levels to be watching, right? So we're going to go into the screen shared here and we'll rock and roll, of course. Oh, we were looking at Filecoin last night in the meeting. Yes. Yeah. So DXY, first of all, what do you note? There's been a Bitcoin pullback. We marked one level here, this local low, and I've been watching it for weeks now come down. It was the only alert on my chart. And if we go to the daily, what I wanted to see is if this comes down, reclaims the level and starts reclaiming, like 102, then we can push to 103, etc. As the SPX is doing what? Coming into resistance right here. So again, this resistance was derived from the quarter 3. So we're just kind of giving a broad overview here of the market real quick before we get into Bitcoin. Okay, so you can see this is just a backfill of an NPOC from the quarter 3 of last year from this move. So it was a nice level to have on the chart. I'm going to go ahead and delete the NPOC. It's just not necessary anymore. And then you have this quarter 1 low that is going to be absolutely important. We covered this yesterday. You can see that this has been it was the level that we bounced from last year in the first quarter. Same with like Bitcoin, most altcoins, they all rallied in that early January time. So that very first quarterly low was pretty major because it did rally till, almost the end of March. So the end of the quarter. So it rallied through the quarter at that point. So getting back above this has been kind of a struggle and it'd be interesting to see if it can start closing things like a weekly or a monthly above it and holding it as support. Because I do think at that time, then you are targeting this local high right here into the gold pocket, right? And so you could very, very easily, just mark things off like so. And there is your target, right? So you can see how this will become a pretty easy zone. And if we're seeing that, we should expect further upside in Bitcoin, right? Probably with other assets. It is a little contradictory, though, to the DXY. So if the DXY gets rejected here and starts breaking below 101.297 definitively, I would actually look for about 96 on this asset, which would transpire to the SPX probably rallying pretty heavily into this 4,200 plus level, which would be above this area here. So that's how I would treat that. And one last thing we want to look at. Oh, yeah. This is the DXY right here, or the SPX. There was one pattern we didn't cover yesterday on Sin City. There's just so much to talk about, and you don't want to talk too much, especially when you're sharing with other guests. This is going to be kind of like a pivot, right? So again, we talked about the B-leg pivot on Adam yesterday, and you've seen me do this on the show a lot. This is going to be the X of the start of this reversal pattern we called out in the summer, right? So we've been hanging on to this pattern for several months now, better part of half a year actually. But this and this level here, you can see this is going to be what your support. So you came up, it was support, came back down, it was support. Now what are you doing? You're turning it into resistance. You need to be living back above this zone. It's in confluence with that quarter 1 low. It's in confluence with the yearly pivot right here, giving us, an edge saying, okay, if we're living above this area on the chart and this is support again, we should be targeting the next level, which for us is going to be up near these local highs around 43.11.69 up to 44.12, which is kind of a big box for the SPX, right? So that's what you need to know about traditional markets. Okay. So in terms of Bitcoin though, expecting a pullback out of this box, this was a really, really big area. Let's switch over to all the Bitcoin charts. This has kind of been the one that I've been mapping everything off of. So this was my timeline for getting up to the $26,000 zone, right? So I've been looking for this box. I even put it on Twitter that, I was a little upset that it front ran me here by like $32. Sometimes it happens in trading, but you did get this secondary push. Max was kind enough to let us know why you didn't like the high, and you got this move into resistance. So you did close out this weekly NPOC from 24K. If you were to go to the weekly chart here, what you'll notice is you could just box off your local highs. As always, you guys see me do this frequently. You've got a weekly swing fail here. So that's what this line is. That's where we swung fail the weekly high, close back below before reversing. And here's your reversal on the open. Just going to map that off right there. We'll get rid of this, easy to see. And there is your true resistance, right? So this is where you're going to find real supply. 24 grand isn't going to necessarily be the stopping point, even though it was an NPOC. A lot of people will treat them that way. Not quite how it works. Now you can see that if you zoom out on the weekly as well, this 22,407, the 6M1 hand calculated pivot, very, very nice. Kind of held things down pretty well for quite some time. Like you got to the daily again, you can see this was the same level, but on the daily from prior price action. It's very clean. So where do we go from here? We've already taken the high. I don't think it's necessarily definitively we have to stop from where we are. I am still looking towards the middle of February to end of February for this box to kind of hit, giving myself a 2-week zone. I know that's really wide, but I've been calling this out for months. Well, yeah, about a month and a half. So this would be the timeline I'm looking for if we should get that. So what do we need to see on this? Well, realistically, you can already see we've taken last week's high, which is 23,967.50. So we're going to mark that one in a second. And you can see that you've got this weekly open. So straight away, we know the weekly open and the previous week high are going to be important. That was actually our box over here. Go down to like the 1 hour. And you can see that this was kind of the box that we had on the show. Actually, it's on this one right here. This was the box we had right here. We're using conservative targets after the move up, right? So we're looking for this zone. And if it gets flipped, what are we looking to do? We're looking to come up to those weekly opens, that weekly swing fail, that box we were just isolating on the other chart. You've now come back, tried to hold the weekly open as support right here. Got to bounce all the way back up to the previous week high in this little box, right? So you can see that here. Hopefully, get rid of the VWAP, which is resistance apparently. Support, resistance, back through support. So what are we looking back to? Well, the next major level for us on the chart is actually an old weekly high yet again, right down here. So me and Max kind of talked about it. There are some single prints beneath us that do close out if we're looking at this from a volume standpoint. And the gold pocket here will be lining up pretty nicely with those. So that'll be something that we're going to talk about a little bit, that if we're looking for a full-on retrace, this would really be the zone for me, that anything beneath this is probably, you're probably coming back to 22.4 in my opinion. You're probably going to cycle this whole range, and then to me it looks real bad. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves with the doom and gloom there, but that's the trigger, right? So that's what you need to know, is if you start losing 22.402 on like a material basis, daily candle down there closing and giving this box right here up and finding your way back in the range, you're going to rotate the full thing. And anytime that you've come down below 22.810 on anything more than a 30-minute candle, you've actually come all the way down to 22.407 basically. So I would be looking at that as a move that would get underway. And I don't know that there's really anything else to note. I know we have new weekly ranges. So again, we did start a new week. We can take a look at that. Yeah, you're at the weekly range high. This is also supporting that you really do need to be hanging on to this zone on the chart. Finding your way back into this, it does put you all the way back down into the 23.1 range. We talked about that yesterday on Sin City as well. That was your New York point of control. At the time, it was your daily point of control. It's your weekly point of control. It closes out this hourly PVA. I know how Max likes his hourly PVAs. Yeah, that's really what I would be paying attention to, is I would be paying attention to some support on the chart, some obvious support. I would know where my weekly range is developing, because this is, coming into the end of the week. We're on Thursday. We're 3 days in, so there's actually quite a bit of weight here. We're probably not going to trend above this range for the rest of the week. So at some point, I would expect us to either shift volume up or come back to the point of control. And there's quite a bit of low volume up here. Not a ton of volume coming in terms of like supporting this from a volume profile standpoint, but that can change. As Max says, volume, buyers, sellers, they can arrive at any time. So to me, if you want more upside, you're going to have to reclaim the weekly open and the previous week high, this little box here. If this gets turned back into support, well, probably going to challenge the high again, formally tap this 24,297 previous week open, and maybe even challenge up to 24.7. But until that happens, I have to err on the side of where's my best place to be looking for a long. And I would say this gold pocket and this prior week high right here, which was kind of the gatekeeper for us for several weeks, right? That's going to be a pretty good area to be looking at for the reaction to see if we get what we need. One thing I want to emphasize is we talked about the idea of this yesterday, where it came down and tapped this gold pocket, right? We were talking about it on show. Max was talking about how we didn't hit either gold pocket. We missed the gold pocket to the upside and we missed it to the downside. And so you came down straight into it, took the lows, washed everyone out, up you go, right? It's not a guaranteed trade, so you don't want to preset for it, even though it was really fast. But, hopefully yesterday, you guys saw that real time, you had to be ready and sat and present to take the trade. But if you're at the computer, you can definitely use tools like order flow or whatever you're using. Hopefully you're using a trigger to get into this, because it gave you a perfect entry with several different confluences. You had major support here. It's been major support for quite some time. And then it was just, okay, where's my next targets? Very first target on this is $600 away. That's a great trade. After that, you're looking up to the weekly open, etc. So rally's not over just yet, especially if traditional markets are going to hold out. We really need to see what the DXY is going to do. It's really getting hammered. I don't follow things like overbought and oversold on it because I don't know that applies to Forex, but I can tell you losing that 101 level there, that monthly low that I had isolated a while back, you lose that. And I mean, it's going to be a big move for risk on assets. Overall, still my macro target on this is not 25,838. What are we doing there? Not there. It is up here at 26,724. And I think if we're going to hit that and congruent with this, current pump, which everyone seems to think is unsustainable, I would say that, there is some truth to that. However, the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent a lot of times. So, be careful. If we get the reaction though off that zone and we're at resistance here and the SPX is pulling back, that's going to be the important confluence here. Is SPX needs to be pulling back, right? As you can see right now, it's definitely not. It's literally saying, I want to go to this box, which for the SPX, this is very, very intense. Yeah, there's no reason to really be bearish just yet. I don't think we've done anything material, even on the low time frames, to really constitute that the rally's over just yet. I would like to see this area of the chart lost before I get kind of more medium to long-term bearish in terms of like a multi-day to week pullback that might take out some lows. So that is it. That's all I've got. I tend to ramble, so I'm going to cut myself off and turn it over to Max so he can do his thing.
Yeah, so I forgot that we've not gone over the lows. Only when you were going over the low yesterday in the stream, I was like, I should probably do that in the public stream, because we went over it last night in the MEMS update. So let's just zoom into it. If we zoom in, you can see you had a really big finished auction. You've got a lot of zeros on the right-hand side. So what this means is it didn't take any buyers. There was no buyers down here effectively. So when the sales start to come through, the shorts, the stop losses, whatever it was, when all these market orders came in, it triggered at this point, or probably a bit higher, a cascade of stop losses. And then as soon as someone decided in the golden pocket, I'm going to buy, there was no people selling here. So price then had to reach up to the buyers to then find them. And, this is where you got the one, then the 700K buying imbalance there. And you were given, we joked by this morning last night for the members, we joked by in the stream, you were given about a minute to get into this trade. So if I go and find it I like the 1 million volume chart. I know Magic likes the 5 mil. But but you were given, ample opportunity here, and it was about a minute to enter, to analyze what had just occurred, to spot the delta switch up that had taken place. And it's really easy to spot in the 1 minute. That's why I prefer this one, because the color grades are just so much cleaner, and that's pretty much, it's how you can trade it. You just identify, okay, you've had a lot of red, started to get a bit of discrepancies. It's not solid red anymore, and then you get the green come in as buyers come into the market. You can even see increases in open interest here, as it was literally buyers coming in, and then you get that very fast move up. Then what we said earlier in the member stream, I don't know if you recall, Magic, but we said in this region, this is an area to hedge and, the area to look for to bounce. Now I'm going to toot my own little horn here. I gave this little level. The reason being is, what I like to do sometimes with single prints is when you see candles like this, where it goes from one to the other, I like to move. So we've got a single print here. Okay. So from a theoretical point of view, the single print is from 23,230 to 23,322. But what I like to do sometimes is when you get two candles such as this, where it's one candle that is then closed and gone on to the other. Now, most wouldn't really look at that as a single print, but I do quite like to do that sometimes, because it doesn't make sense that when one candle changes, you just ignore the rest of the move if it was such a fast, move. I still believe that would be an inefficiency on the chart. And here, if you marked the line that we gave in the members update this morning, you have got it right where we're bouncing from. It's an important level to hold now, but it's given us a big buying tail. And if you go onto the 5 minute and we find this on the price action, you can see that you had a similar situation to what you had last night. You've got a load of you've got a finished auction down here where it just didn't take any buyers. There was no buyers down here. And as soon as someone decided to buy, it had to go and find a seller. So it's a finished auction. Now, does this mean, guaranteed it's the end? Well, it's got to get back above the weekly open, the daily open, the current point of control. We're currently living outside today's range, which is never, the best to look. But we have now had a delta switch up. Now, if you go onto the really low time frames, I'm going to have to do this on this chart. Find where we are. You actually had initially, now it doesn't look too clean on this chart, so I do apologize, but initially you had a load of shorts pile in. I could go to the 1 minute, but it doesn't really matter. So anyway, in this candle here, initially you had a load of shorts pile in towards the bottom, but then as you can see, the delta in the finished candle is only 1.1 million positive. So it's gone from negative to a positive when a load of market buyers then came in. So we were saying, initially you haven't had that delta switch up, but then it came a bit later on. Now with the open interest increasing, and there's clear market dominance, I guess you could say, from the buyers. There's more people interested in buying here than people selling. So, that does warrant that we reclaim some of these regions, but, it doesn't guarantee it, because as soon as price does start to trickle down, you can start to think about their stop losses, where their stop loss is going to be. Well, they're going to be down below that region. It's going to be where the previous day value area high is. You have got a potential Dalton in place, so you can't really forget about that, with the target of that being down at 23,100. So it's a way away, and loss of this region really does, you're most likely going there. You've got a very high percentage chance that you do. But other than that, today it's been pretty slow. The one trade that I did take was a short from this region, and the reason being was, you can see in this little move up, you are having a load of buyers coming into the price. You can see the open interest increasing. You can see the green at the delta bar at the bottom. You can also see the yellow line steadily increasing. So it means overall you've got a load of buyers coming in, and they weren't doing the best job of moving the price, and they weren't. No one was testing their stop losses. Now we did initially, when I spotted this, we did get a little bit of a drawdown, but I said no, I'd like to get the previous week high. Reason being is, when you get a move up like this, what it does is it takes out people that have been shorting in this side of the market. So, of course, at the other end of these longs, these market longs, there is someone selling and opening a short. So you kind of expect them to be squeezed, even if just a little bit, to then dump it, because the market makers, they want to take liquidity from both sides. They want to squeeze the shorts to then and take over those shorts potentially to then punish the longs. It wasn't a huge amounts, but you can see here you've got some in top of the rise here where you've got some the delta was really struggling to keep up with the open interest, and it just shows you where it kind of ticked over. You've got that delta switch up here as you reject from the you're a few dollars off, so I need to get another job, but the VWAP was you're also there. So the fact you rejected from here, you've had a load of buying coming into the level, you've had that delta switch up, you were getting selling imbalances coming off it. You were given time up here to think about getting into a short, especially after you did just about take this high. You were given a few indicators to jump in as its price started to come down. But yeah, other than that, it's been a pretty slow day. Hopefully it picks up a little bit now, but unless we reclaim the daily open, you are looking down to take the previous day value area high and ultimately go down to the previous day point of control as that Dalton commences. Does this offer a trade right now? Well, let's go to a lower term time frame, and I need to move this one down. And let's look where this comes in at. So it comes in at 23,774. 23,774. No, but the daily point of control is around that region. So you've got the gold pocket from this local high to the low around the daily point of control. So that does offer as a potential setup, but you've got to be aware of you are above the daily open. So it's an interesting one. If you get above that and lose the daily open after you reject from this region, that then offers a trade to then target the previous day value area high. So that's be my next potential setup that I'd be looking at. But no, this thing can come up to this same region again. But if you're doing that, expect all these highs to be taken here, and you really come to the higher end of the golden pocket. So two potential short setups in the immediate, but the ultimate target would be the previous point of control and the gold pocket below us. So you've got plenty of setups coming to us now. So it's a hopefully going to be an interesting next few hours. But yeah, I'm pretty much done, Magic.
No, all good. Always learn a little something here and there when you go over it. So we got one question here. Lola is chatting me up about correlation trading, which you guys know typically I don't get into too much. Do you think Bitcoin is better correlated to the NASDAQ instead of the SPX, being tech seems to move when NDX does? Do you track any of that? I don't. I've actually, the only charts that I have are the SPX and ES for Bitcoin, to be honest with you. And I'll tell you that correlations do come and go. If you were looking at the correlation of Bitcoin in like the 2020 era, I believe it was gold. Gold was the asset to correlate to at the time. It was very heavily correlated to how gold was trading. So it comes and goes. I track traditional markets like the SPX because I do think that it's got quite a bit of weight on just the overall health of like how risk on assets are going to be performing. Obviously, things like tech have been crushed. Bitcoin got crushed. I don't think it has anything to do with the correlation there. I think it has everything to do with it's a low market cap asset class, comparatively speaking. And the swings on it are going to be pretty large in comparison to traditional markets. I mean, that's just the common theme there. But no, I don't get into which one's going to be the best correlated. I just track the SPX. I want to know what's going on in traditional land. I do worry that this is a FOMO, rally in the sense that people are FOMOing to their own demise here. But again, there's no reason for me to be bearish on this, even with so one thing to note is, I don't talk about this too much on here, but I go over it in the group quite a bit, is like mindset and like how to hold trades for a long time, especially swing trading right now. That's what everybody wants to learn to do. And we're at a point where swing trading made sense. So just clearing everything off, and you're looking at this, right? So this was the overall structure we gave in the summer when this low was made back in, we actually started talking about this pattern here, and then it finally completed. And I believe it was like the 2021 open or low that you reclaimed. If I recall, there's some levels down here. I think they're underneath my horizontals. Yeah, there you go. 2021 low, 2021 open. So you can see that you actually had this move into the lows. Technically on a weekly time frame, you had the swing fail. You had a really nice swing failure pattern here. So you can see that you took this low, you closed above it, right? And so that was kind of the trigger. But the point I'm making is, as soon as we started reclaiming the 2021 low here at 36.62, you had a very clear target of X and B, right? So we knew we were coming back to this zone, most likely, there's no guarantees, but most probably this is going to be your target, right? And so if I'm thinking that on something like the SPX and the DXY here had topped potentially, which low-key got to call the top on the DXY as well. I just didn't, I wouldn't say that we called it. I said it's hopium when I gave this out when this happened. I said hopium is what this is. And it ended up being more than hopium, but it was the measured move. So the confluence of this saying, okay, you have the potential for a major high here, right? You also have the potential for a major low on a huge index. We know we're going to rally pretty significantly back to here. So I should be looking for swing longs given an opportunity. And Bitcoin definitely gave that. And I started talking about the potential for the 2019 China style pump on Bitcoin almost as soon as that failure happened down below the range. I was talking about it back in December because it reminded me so much of the idea that people were already very bearish. We were already very, oversold, whatever you want to call it, and everyone's looking for lower. So the correlation on that is if this is rallying to this zone, this is my first target and this is my second target. There's been no reason to actually close this trade because there's been no sign of weakness. You've come down to these major averages, you can see kind of chopped around here, so it gets a little ugly. However, what were the two zones we were initially working off of were the opens on the yearly. So very high time frame levels. 2021 open is actually your exact low here, and the 0.5 off of a lower time frame shark. So the confluence there is I've got no real reason to be anything but medium term bullish and looking for my next target, which on something like this is from A to D. Excuse me. I'm looking for the gold pocket now, which correlates nicely with this high. And so to me, that's why I watch this one. I've been tracking it longer. I've got the timing of this asset down. So I've got time on it already broken down for the pivot points that I find in the market, which a little bit of a disappointment on this one. However, that's a good move. But you can see this is your first pivot point, second pivot point, third pivot point, fourth, and we're coming into the middle to end of February for our macro gold pocket on this pull. So really, really interested to see what happens. And so from a time and price perspective, this is doing exactly what it's supposed to. If you were to look at this from an overall pattern standpoint, though, and you were to say, well, don't we track things like this on harmonics? We should be looking at how long is it going to take this thing to expand, which is very valid. Yeah, that's what we want right here. We just want to measure this distance. And you can see on this one, it's going to be quite different, where it's saying that if this starts rallying beyond this level, I would start looking at this as my timeline for the next pivots in the market, right? And there was my first pivot right here, the exact low. We've got a pivot point coming in where the 21st of February, according to this, that week, which we're already kind of looking at that for Bitcoin. The other pivot says the 14th. So we know sometime on the second half of February is when I'm expecting the market to maybe not roll over, but cool off a little bit, maybe hit like a local high or something, or maybe it breaks out, who knows? But that's how I'm viewing it. I know that's probably not as helpful to your question, but that's why I use the SPX. It makes sense to me. I don't think that you're going to get a correlation that's always going to be correct. And I think that's shown and proven. They all end up around the same, margin at some point, like 80%. So it doesn't bother me. If you want to track NASDAQ, you can. I don't think it's going to provide you anything that's going to be any more of an edge, so to speak. I still think you need to do your TA, still need to put things together, write down your plan, kind of keep everything clear in your head, because, one thing that a lot of people do, magic is strictly about fundamentals. Oh yeah, fundamentals for show. Hey Magic, you should upload a video about how you started trading and with the when and why and the whole journey. I appreciate that. Ironically, someone reached out to me about that a while back. It was Tim Warren and T Shroom on Investing Bros. I've been on their show, their new show, and I used to go on their show when they were on Crypto Jeb. They want to do a podcast where they want to have people on and talk about like, you know, traders that have had success and like how they found it, how they started. My trading journey is like everyone else's though. I fucked around and found out, for lack of a better term, with leverage right out the gate, which I'll be upfront with you. The reason so many people fail at trading is because they do that. It's really one of those things where leverage can make or break you very early on before you even have a chance to get any kind of a strategy working or figure this whole thing out. So make sure you're being careful with that. That's all I'll say there. But yeah, definitely we'll do a video about that sometime. And I don't like talking about myself too much, especially in like a static video and then uploading it, because it's just like, look at me, you know, it's never going to be the person that I am. And I think maybe I'd get more followers if I did that, but it's not really about the followers all the time. It's not about, you know, clout doesn't pay my bills. Let's put it that way. So it's like, yeah, we're not paying our bills with our ego. So otherwise, I don't really think I have anything else. It's just, you know, again, guys, make sure that if you have questions in here, like, you know, we go through a lot of the very technical things. We go through a lot of levels. We go through the order flow, which I don't think anyone else on public YouTube is doing. No one's giving you guys the details that Max is, especially. So if you have questions, either hop into the Discord and ask us, hop into the chat and ask us, write a comment on the video down below. We'll check those out. The only request I saw was somebody asked about Litecoin in one of the chats. I will look at Litecoin real quick before we go. And that's a pretty quick one because I already know where Litecoin's at on the chart. It is coming into resistance. However, everything is at resistance. That doesn't necessarily mean it's an automatic short. Maybe I'll do a secondary stream for just altcoins where we don't look at Bitcoin, so we have more time. And that way I'm not on here for an hour straight with Max. We'll do like a second live stream called the altcoin live for the day. And I think it's Coinbase is where this is at.
I just want to say we've had 35 people in here. It's actually gone to 37 across both the channels. Yesterday we had 40. We appreciate the huge turnout that we're getting. It's you know, it's always a pleasure to see people coming in and tuning in. So appreciate that a lot.
It does help. Yeah. No, I say it's not about the followers, but when you get people coming into the chat and you're getting a good response, it definitely helps. It definitely
we just
helps.
Got 40.
There
Done
we
it
go.
again.
So,
2 days in a row.
I like it. That's not long for this world. Litecoin. Yeah. So this is another one covered on Sin City actually a while back. We were covering this local range right here, and this being the support you wanted to see held. Look at that.
Show your page, you fool.
Oh shit. I do tend to just start driving and not paying attention to what I'm doing. So careful. Yeah, so this was the range we had been setting up, if you guys recall. And this is an overall larger range, which you can see I've kind of segmented the middle of this. But realistically, you were looking to hang on to this brighter blue box right here. You can see that you've wicked into it. It became support, resistance, support, off it goes. Holding on to previous highs right here. I think on the weekly time frames where we were looking at this. Yeah, you see you had a weekly SFP here, right? So you traded above the range, held it as support. SFP of the weekly. So you had a really nice range between $64 and $83. And you could basically just segment it off with this local high here at 73. So claim 73, and you're going to make an attempt into where? The local gold pocket. And then you have these local daily highs right here. So for me, Litecoin is coming into resistance. You've got a gold pocket. You've got the May highs, I believe. What is that, May? Yeah, that's the month of May right here before the sell-off. Okay, so and you've got some daily resistance here. You can just look left and you can see that you've got some candles that came up here, took some highs, and then nuked. So there is resistance here. And I think I was targeting about, yeah, $106 is about what I was looking for on Litecoin. So I'm still looking to see if this will push up through. Now, you are at resistance, so you have what's called convergence here. Convergence is where you have multiple Fibonacci levels coming in. Now, you're not supposed to necessarily trade with just fibs. However, it can be done. And this is a really basic one right here. So you can see I've got the 236 and you've got your overall low of this move down and the overall high right here locally from the November highs. So the all-time high on Bitcoin, because this made us a lower high on that run in November. So 236 is coming in. gold pocket from a local standpoint, from this local high here on the pull down. A little bit of resistance. If you wanted to make this more of a pocket, you could add like the 0.25 to it. That's totally acceptable. You could do something like this. And, you know, where does it fall into? It falls right into our box. Okay, so you've got a zone here. Would I say this is a good place to go long? No. Could it go through this level? Absolutely. Anything could happen, but I'm never going to tell you to buy at resistance. So if you guys are looking for that guy that's like all in, let's fucking go. It's probably not going to be me. Excuse my language. I'm pretty conservative. I'll tell you when I'm looking at something, if I want to get into the asset or if I don't. And this one, the best entries were down here. You had a really clear range above an old range. So range, expansion. So you're coming into resistance. One would expect to see another range at some point. And I do want to kind of clean this up just a little bit. We're going to keep that guy where it is here in just a second. And let's get rid of some of these boxes. Let's just go out to the yearly just to make sure we're not missing anything. One thing you'll note is I've got a box right here in the middle. And the reason I do is if you go to the yearly chart, look where we are. So this is actually a pretty big zone of resistance. And you could realistically move this up a little bit. And let's adjust this to here. And we'll adjust that to the 12M. Right, so that's a new level there. And I don't think that I need this level anymore, this 6M right there. So let's get rid of that. Let's make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row, and then I'll let you guys hop on out of here. Yeah, that's, man, 146 is primed if it does get through the May highs. I'm not gonna lie, that's actually pretty good. And what else do we notice here? This is going to be quarterly lows at some point between 104 and 105, right? So I love my quarterly ranges and my quarterly lows. Realistically, this one right here is going to be the one I'm most interested in. Now you could extend this down to this level if you wanted to. So like when we're going down into these lows, we'll talk about it. Let's say we wanted to make a whole new box with no fibs, right? So because we're just like, we don't believe in Fibonacci. We only believe in horizontal levels, which there's people out there like that. Doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they trade differently than us. You could very easily box this off like so. Because these are quarterly low, monthly lows right here, aren't they? Yeah, this is a great box. Quarterly lows, everything's here. Now let's go back to the low time frame and we'll delete some stuff. We know where the May high is. Let's make this in the middle. So this zone right here, straight away, you can see what you're doing, right? You see this? You've come down, you've got support. Now you're coming back and you're going to back test resistance. So the most important area is going to be the May high, probably, if you wanted to just give one level. But if you were looking at it as a zone, which I think you should, we get to move our box up a little bit, 104 to 112. If you claim this zone on the chart, I would say on something like a weekly to monthly time frame, so higher time frame is what you want to see. Doesn't mean it can't just push through on a daily and keep going. But this is going to be a back test of support and resistance. Very, very simple one, right? So you can see that right here. If you get through 112, let's say you flip this box to support at some point, any point, right? So Bitcoin keeps going, it's going to 50K, right? This comes up here, this is where you're going. 100%, not 100%. High likelihood that I think you'll come up to 146.50. I've not done any high time frame work on this thing. And there's so much data on Litecoin. Maybe it deserves a video. Oh yeah, you're trending above the pivot. Very nice. What's the buy yearly? Yeah, it's 174. I remember actually trading in that level. Try yearly. There you go, 150. So I would be very happy with this. If you get above this level, this is actually where I would target quite a bit. And then you're just marking out what local highs. You guys see me do this all the time. See this like a little zone of highs right here. Look at these string of highs. Well, think of all the stop losses you can or people you can trap above these. It's very nice. But that's what I'd be looking for if I wanted to be bullish. Otherwise, I would say be careful. You're coming into pretty major resistance. And when I say that, I don't mean it lightly, because look how this has been such important support and resistance. So you are coming into that. So if you are in a position from lower, Not a bad place to lock in some gains. Doesn't mean exit your whole position. Just, pay yourself a little bit. You can always try to put that money back into something else, or you can put it to the side and enjoy having some extra money, right? So, because the alternative to this going to 146 is coming back down to like the November high. And if you recall, that's also going to be right around where your yearly pivot was from last year. So I would say if you get a rejection here between 104 and 112, I'd look back between 83 and $88. This would be the zone that I'd be most interested in. I'll bet that if we pulled volume, it also is going to support that. And if it doesn't, then we'll just end the stream on me being incorrect. Hot damn, look at that. There's your range. So no matter what, if you get a pullback there, you're trading outside of your range. And I would expect to see something like this. This range is going to shift, especially if more volume comes in. But I would expect to start seeing that move back into this zone right here. And that's where I'd be interested again in prices down here, because I think you can get a nice SR flip. Now, if you lose this level, well, what goes up fast does what, guys? Comes down fast, right? And you're looking at $64 again. However, we're not at that point. I would just trade it for what it is. One thing I do want to do is treat this as an overall range, though. Now I'm going to have to spend time on this chart. I'm sorry. Oof. Yeah. Yeah. You lose the November high in that yearly pivot around like $83 to $89. Yeah, you're coming back to earth. But that's not the end of the world. Again, notice how this is a giant range right here in itself. Probably shouldn't say this is a giant range, but this is technically a range, right? And then you come down. What do? Okay, see how you can accumulate down here? Same thing happened right here. See, look at this same zone we just identified. Came up above it, failed. What did it do? Came back to earth, accumulates, new paradigm, right? So
is that
same concept? That is a Bob Ross. So same concept of, let's say that you did something similar to this, because I think bottoms do take time. The best bottoms do. I'm a bottom expert. Power bottom. No, I'm kidding. You've got this coming up. What do we just looked at? We just looked at 146. Let's say you only make this move to 146, come back to earth, right? And then off you go. You get it. What is that? Double bottom. Very nice. Don't follow the squigglies. Those were just squigglies, but just an idea. And you've seen it before. Very similar to algo. Very big bottoming patterns. Litecoin coming back into what is a very important inflection point, 104 to 112. How about that? We identified that in about 2 minutes of work on the chart on the high time frame. We've now got a thesis. We know this is resistance. We know that if it's claimed, we're probably looking for about 146, give or take. And then the potential of coming back to this support is high, right? So make sure that you're taking care of your position. Make sure that you know this zone on the chart is there, because it is going to be important. And trade safe if you're trading. If you're investing and you're just looking for general levels and advice and overviews of the charts, why we're here. I don't really have anything else to add, so I'm gonna cut it off because I'm starting to lose my voice. And it looks like we hit 44, so a new paradigm on the show as well. Josh said no lows. No losses broken, so market share isn't shifting. I use low leverage. Awesome, Mark. Hard lessons learned over the past 18 months using leverage. Yeah, SOC. I'm sure, for sure. I've moved 90% to spot. Love to hear it. That's amazing. Thank you, Crypto Anon. Redman, always. Thank you. I do owe you some videos. I am working on those. Believe it or not, I feel like that's going to have to be a series, but it's not the end of the world. That's good content. Let's see. I don't think I have. I'm trying to keep up with the comments for once. When you say there's no sign of weakness, what are you looking for? The first sign of reversal? Thanks. That's a great question. So when I'm saying I'm looking for a sign of weakness, so immediately, my thoughts go to market structure, right? So right here, let's get rid of some of this stuff. It's just too much. There's just too much on the chart. So sign of weakness, right? What do you notice right here? You've made a high, okay? So we've got that high that we just identified. We've now swung, fell the high, and then closed beneath it here on the daily. And this is your structural low right here. So you can see straight away, I've got an automatic range. So I now created a swing high and a failure, and I have a failure right here as well. You can see that how, maybe you can see it. I think I need to show my screen again, don't I? No, I don't. So right here, support, resistance, you've got a clear range. However, what did you do? You broke down. You've made a lower high here. I believe this is probably somewhere near the 618. That's pretty close. A little front run of it. Came up, took these local highs. Again, another SFP. So this is where it kind of, you start paying attention to low time frame stuff. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Okay, so you can see that you've got some highs that you're trying to establish. You go down to like the 4 hour, you can start seeing it a little bit cleaner right here. So you see even on the 4 hour, it's respected. You've got local highs here. I've got my range. Let's identify our range a little bit cleaner. Right here. Range high, range low. I've come up to the EQ of the range again. I've now swung failed these highs, and I'm coming down, came back to range lows. I'm looking for longs, technically. However, I'm begin breaking down. I now know that I've exited this range. And you can use whatever you need to. Some people use order flow. I think this is probably available on the desktop version of XO. You might be watching the order flow, whatever it is. But you've made a lower high, and this is now a low that as soon as it's broken you're gonna make a lower low into what? This lower high right here. So that's how I would classify it. I would just be using market structure. I don't trade with a lot of tools. A lot of times I literally just look at the chart and say, okay, what are we doing here? You can see how you've got a bad trend that's already starting, right? You can see that's not even technically a high, but you've come down. So your market structure has changed here, right? So not a great look. Now, if you're long from lower, technically this is a higher low. If you're long from right here, though, you can't be holding on through this downturn. That's not a good idea. So at least if you're trading, you've got to be looking back to the nearest support, which was $64. You've come down to support, chopped around. Support gets reclaimed once, twice, very cleanly. Reclaim, another perfect touch almost, and then continues the higher low trajectory. And you know that the overall trend is now here. So on a sign of weakness on this one, these November highs are going to be fairly important to me. You can see that's also going to be beneath these local lows and this overall low that was established right here on the 18th. So it does come down to a little bit of just like, okay, looking at the chart, recognizing what's going on, understanding what I should be doing. You've got a very clear uptrend. However, I have not really taken longs in a while or taken stops in a while. It would be one of those things where if you were to start coming back down here and taking these people out of their positions, as Max has pointed out in the past, what happens when we go and we take all those stops, those are buyers that are then forced to sell. You get forced selling into weak price action. It usually accelerates the move. And I would expect to establish some form of a range back in this level here, like back where it makes the most sense, which is going to be right here in this region of the chart, right? So you're going to be looking, I'd probably say like this. That's where I'd be looking. And you can see that's actually been support, resistance, resistance. I'm not using any time frames for that. I'm just looking at the chart for this. There are probably better examples of signs of weakness. Generally on a sign of weakness, something like a Litecoin, I would definitely want to be looking at like a weekly and above. So just like right here, this is the all-time high. Okay. You've swung, failed the high, came back down to an annual open, bounced, and then you actually turned it into resistance. So if you missed this whole move down and you got bullish right here, you got bullish on a bearish back test. It's like, you can't make it up, like that would be a big sign of weakness. You swung, failed the high, huge drop, came back to resistance, another swing failure pattern of the high. You've made a lower high. That's not a good look. Same thing could be said over here. This technically was a swing failure pattern of the high. You've come down, established support. You've now made a lower high. You actually didn't swing fail anything for this one. And you're making lower lows. So you've taken this low out. You can see how that's a lower low. So anyone that was like, oh, I really want to trade this, this is kind of why the very first video in our academy goes over horizontals. And we were in this region, and I was like, this thing's going to like $40, you know, basically. I said at a minimum, it's going to 60. And lo and behold, that ended up being very, very correct. So what would be a sign of weakness? Yeah, coming into resistance, swing failing a top like a daily or a weekly time frame, and then starting to form bearish market structure after that. That would get me bearish. And that's what you kind of did here. You know, you can see that you've taken these highs, you've then closed immediately beneath them. You've taken out some pretty important lows, and now you're just making lower high, lower high, lower high, all the way into a lower low. Now you've established a big lower low. If you start taking out some of these highs at like 146, the price can get kind of out of control, for lack of a better term. I'm going to move this line. It's no longer important to me. I'm actually going to move it to right here. And this one can probably go. Yeah, that one can definitely go. I would be looking, yeah, if you get back above this little local barrier right here, that 146 area we were just talking about, right? So another area that we could zone off. Go down the daily now. Take a look. Look at that. So now this is my support that I've got to get back above. Next support. What happens anytime we're holding this as support, which right here we were trying to before back testing it and nuking. Get above 146. Probably going to be taking all these highs. I would anticipate a pretty big move. At a minimum, you've seen moves to 226, 220. So, I mean, it'd be a very big move. I think you would want to, you know, pace yourself on that a little bit, but that's a ways away. So I need to work on the Litecoin chart. I haven't done any volume work on it in such a long time that I'm probably going to. I've been trading this with only horizontals, or not trading it, giving analysis on Litecoin with only horizontals for like over a year at this point. And so far it's been good. So you don't have to do all this other stuff that we're doing. It just adds a little bit of context to it. So maybe I'll make a Litecoin video at some point and make that a public video to go over. So I'm going to cut it off there because we've been going a while. Man, I'm trying to keep up. Litecoin's halvening. Oh yeah, yep. Litecoin halvening's coming. I forget that it's got fundamentals kind of like Bitcoin. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great morning. If you have questions, you guys know where to find us. Just write it out in the comments down below. We'll get to it, or join the group and post it in any of the chats. Okay, so